YouTube, what's going on? It is that time of the week. Sunday night, probably the worst time of the week. The weekend is over, but that's okay. We're off to the next one. Last week flew by, for me, anyways, so hopefully this week will do the same thing. I've been looking at a lot of domestic cars lately, and really just wanted to get back into the premium detailed import stuff, which is, Greenlight is my bread and butter, only because of the convenience of collecting it. I mean, they are awesome, and they do have a pretty broad spectrum of diecast, so that helps. But if I lived in Japan, I don't think I would even have a Greenlight car. Everything would be Kyosho and TLV for me. It's just not available here, and it is a lot more expensive. But that part of it wouldn't stop me from buying it. I would just it's all relative. So I would have whatever number of castings relative to the dollars spent. Instead of having three Greenlight cars, I'd have one Tomica limited vintage. So my collection would be smaller, but it would definitely be better. And so, with that being said, I brought out some import cars. There are a couple of domestic models here. We have one Greenlight, or actually two Greenlights, and one Earl American Muscle, and then possibly the Racing Champs Bronco. I don't know if I'm going to really showcase that one or not. That casting has sort of become a mainstay for the dealership. It was the blue one, but I put that one back out in the display case. So now for this video, it'll be the brown one. I do need to get a shop truck. But actually, I have an idea for the shop truck. So we'll see. Anyways, let's just get at it here. So we'll start with this Kyosho Toyota. It's a very small casting here, and I always forget what it's a sports. I just don't remember if it's a 6 or 8. It's a sports 800. This is from the Mechanical Doctor animated series. So it is based off of basically a television show race car. And I really do like it. I know it's small, kind of an odd shape, but man, is it cool. And it's a Toyota, so it's, it is my brand. Everybody has their brand. I wish my brand were American, but unfortunately it's not. But I don't really sweat it too much. I do get the occasional lecture about having pride in where you're from and all that kind of stuff, and that's fine. Americans have made some great cars over the years. The United States kind of catapulted the auto industry into what it is today. I think that's a fair statement. Now, you could say that countries like Italy catapulted supercars to where they're from. Maybe even Germany, for that matter, because going back further back than Ferrari, you had Volkswagen and Porsche. Not that Volkswagen and Porsche are really known for supercars, but anyways, so I'm a Toyota enthusiast, and on the bright side of things, most of them are made in the U.S., so there's that. But I don't know what it is about vintage Japanese cars. I just think they just have more charm than American cars. American cars, vintage American cars, are more alpha. I'll definitely say that they're bigger, stronger, faster. Um, but there's something about the charm of classic Japanese cars, and that's what draws me to them. The styling, America's every country honestly has had great styling. The Germans have had great styling. Obviously, the Italians have had some of the best styling in automotive history. But here in the U.S., I think there's been some incredible styling back all the from the basically from the beginning of cars until about the 1980s, and then it got really bad for a while. But now, in retrospect, the 80s and 90s, the styling of those cars, I can, like, at the time I couldn't see the character, I couldn't see the charm, but now looking back, I can see the character and the charm in those boxy cars that didn't have the artistic styling of cars from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. The Art Deco look of the 50s was just so classic. And then in the 60s, you had the basically the birth of the fastback. I don't know, cars. There's just such a cool history attached to the automobile, and that's why we all collect. I'm sure. Well, some people might do it for the toys. I do it for the cars, and that's why you don't see me buying a lot of toy cars. Um, Mostly purchasing miniature model replicas. So, speaking of classic Italian design, here's a Lancia. This is a Lancia. What is it? Rally 037 from Kyosho. Let's see if we can get a look at this front end. It's definitely a great looking car. The lighting at this angle is not great. I need to wrap up this diorama so that I can get it off of the river, so that I can tidy up the river and then clear this whole area off. Then I can make some adjustments with the lighting and stuff. But yeah, this is a sweet little car. Now, Kyosho is not the only brand to have done this car. CM's Diecast did a pretty nice one as well. But I don't know if they put it out in a civilian deco. Here's another oddball Japanese car. This is a Suzuki Fronte, or Fronti. This is the smallest 1/64 scale car in my collection. It is tiny. I'm sure it would scare a lot of collectors by its size, a lot like the Greenlight 510 did, where a lot of people got it and were upset because they thought it was too small because they were used to the Hot Wheels Datsun 510, which is 1/55 scale. So then when you get the true 1/64 scale, it looks off to you, when in reality, it's true to scale. This thing is tiny. You can see the size of it in comparison to my thumbnail. It is just very, very small. But it is very, very cool. I love the detail. And this one does have, I can't show you the suspension because the diorama is hanging over the table. So if I push it down, it's going to flip. But it does have lens headlights and taillights, rubber tires with tread, prototypical wheels. This is a Konami casting, and it's awesome. What would fat bastards say about this? You guys remember the Austin Powers movies? Christ, he's tiny. Got bigger chunks of corn in my crop. It's my Irish accent for you. Okay, here's a Greenlight. Now, this is Greenlight produced and distributed, but it is not Greenlight designed. This is actually a high-speed tooling. Which is probably a good thing, because if Greenlight designed this car, I don't think it would be as good. I just don't like what they're doing with a lot of the cars that they're bringing out today. I don't know who is behind it. I don't know who the person is that's designing them. There's a lot about them I like, but there are some things about them that I just don't like. But this is actually a pretty nice looking little car. I mean, the Greenlight build quality on it is pretty nice. And I don't know how many decos they've released this in, but I think there's 7 or 8. I don't think they've done a Golf yet, though, have they? And with all the Golf cars they have, that's very surprising. No, I haven't really thought about that. I'm also very shocked that this being a high-speed tooling, that it doesn't have lensed headlights. You know, headlights like this, that are basically just perfect circles, are probably, I would think, the easiest lens headlights to make. And yet, they didn't do it. But at least it's a very highly detailed car. It's very nicely proportioned. It's got it's got an awesome stance. To me, this is I think Kyosho might have done a Cobra. So, okay, save for the Kyosho, if it exists, this is probably the nicest 1:64 scale Shelby Cobra casting. And don't come at me with the Shelby Collectibles, because that does not impress me. I'm not... Shelby Collectibles. Please don't go there. They just don't do anything for me. The many thousands of cars I have in my collection, not a single one of them is a Shelby Collectible. I know Wayne Henderson, who used to watch the channel a lot, and I actually haven't seen him comment in probably about a year. He used to be really interactive on the channel. He's a big fan of Shelby Collectibles. So sorry, buddy, if you watch this. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to talk smack or anything, but I'm just not a fan of Shelby Collectibles. Some of what they do is okay. I like their large scale stuff. They do really nice stuff with the 1:24 and 1:18. It's just the 1:64 scale that just doesn't do much for me. So here's a Racing Champs Ford Bronco with a Greenlight wheel and tire. It's a custom lifted suspension. The casting is incredible. It's so well done. It's probably some of the best Racing Champs stuff that I've seen. It's just the wheels and the stance on the stock version of the Bronco that are awful. But if you put a nice lift on it with some nice wheels and tires, you get a very nice looking Ford Bronco. Alright, here's another American model. This is the Earl Vintage American Muscle. I don't remember the year, but I think it's like a 68. It's a Chevy Nova SS. And this is one of the Earl cars that does have transparent lens headlights and taillights. Not all of them do. In fact, it's probably less than half of them that have the lens detail. There are a lot of extra pieces on these, so you do have to be quite careful. These are my favorite wheels that Earl did in that series. There's the lens taillights. Also has opening hood, opening trunk. Has the whole drivetrain. It's a little dusty, but the whole drivetrain is all detailed. The exhaust, engine, transmission, gas tank. Also has a separate piece side view mirror, which is big and bulky. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but pretty cool. And then this particular model has the vinyl top. Now there is a build flaw with this. There's some excess glue that made its way onto the hood from near one of the vents. That's a little bit of a bummer, but whatever. All right. Which one should we look at next? Tomica Limited Vintage Mazda Luce. You know what this car reminds me of? What year were those cars? They had to be late 80s or early 90s. You guys remember the Chevy Lumina? This car really reminds me of a Chevy Lumina. Now, Tomica Limited Vintage, to me, hands down, the nicest 1/64 scale cars you can buy. I know there are some other brands that make very nice stuff, but they just don't do it on the scale that Tomica does. Brands like Oversteer and NO64. NO64 don't even come close to TLV in my opinion. The build quality is far superior with Tomica Limited Vintage. That's my opinion. That is pretty amazing. Trying to find something to give you guys scale reference. Again, here's my thumb, here's the car, so you can see how small the car is and the level of detail that they are able to put into it. Almost looks real. This is one of the few TLV cars that has the windows down. Almost all of them are windows up, including this Toyota Carina. Just very highly accurate. And they have a very acute attention to detail, not just with the designing of the car, but also with the production of the car and the building, the assembly of the car. You know, like with Earl, you get that sloppiness where you get gaps in in the joints on the articulating parts. You get excess glue on the hood. You know, they're nice cars, but they're not fine tuned in the way that they're put together. Whereas with TLV, you get none of that. You'll never ever get a crooked or offset headlight or tail light like you do with M2 and Greenlight. Kyosho is also really good. Not quite as good as TLV, but as you can see here, there's a lot with that front end that could have gone wrong, and they pretty much nailed it. Alright, well, we only have a few left. Here's one I don't look at too often. This is also a Tomica Limited Vintage, so 3 Tomica Limited Vintage cars on this layout right now. This is the Nissan Safari, which is a pretty big truck. Never available commercially here in the US, but I would say it's probably about the size. It's not quite the size of a Suburban, but it's closer to the size of a Suburban than it is, say, a Pathfinder. But it is a cool truck. And it is one that has really climbed in price since I got it. So I don't think they've released this one too many times. I've only seen it in 2 colors, silver and white. But as far as four-wheel drive, premium detailed four-wheel drive cars go, this one is just about as good as it gets. I've got a small collection, cars like this and some Kyosho, the Kyosho FJ, the Kyosho G-Wagon, stuff like that, the Shuko Defender. There aren't a lot of premium detailed 4x4s out there. I guess this would qualify here, but I think this is more of a full-time all-wheel drive. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I think modern SUVs have gone more towards full-time all-wheel drive rather than the four-wheel drive. This is a nice piece here. And you know what? Whoever made this, they made, I don't know, they made it in a lot of colors, but they also made a couple of different years. They also made a couple of different models. They did, for example, they did a CT, the CTS Coupe. They're impossible to find, though. They're so cool, because they are very highly detailed. They have a really nice realistic look to them. There's the Escalade relative to my thumb. Oh, here's your scale reference on the Suzuki. But both cars are true 164, and both cars are loaded up with detail. And I'm sorry, but as a collector, I would rather have scale accuracy than get something like this in a 3-inch blister. That's just me. Everybody's different. Same thing with the Honda in the background, which is an awesome little car that we're going to take a look at next, because that's the last car left on the layout here. I did have an unfortunate accident with this Escalade where this passenger mirror broke off, but I was able to reattach it with Dow Corning 732 silicone adhesive, and I now have a little bit of a breakaway mirror. And it went on there pretty darn straight. So it kind of worked out. Hopefully I don't lose it again, because then I might be in trouble, because if it comes off again, I'm going to have to somehow remove the silicone before reattaching it. Those are also prototypical wheels. So I don't know the brand. It's a dealership exclusive, and it's exclusive to dealerships in China only. So, but they did a good job on those. Okay, so the Honda, this is a Kyosho, and it's just a real small S800 Roadster, and it is a cool car. It is such a cool car. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more after this, one right there. But yeah, this car here is very, very small. Almost as small as the Suzuki. But the level of detail in it is just very impressive. This is one of my favorite Kyosho cars. I say that about all of them, but this is just one of those cars that doesn't have a very high wow factor. But when you look at it, it's so easy to appreciate just the build, the detail. So much detail. Let's look at this front end in some light. See how you have the turning indicators in the grille with the Honda badge. You do have transparent lens headlights. The chrome bumper. You do have prototypical wheels. Kyosho dominates the hobby with OEM wheels. Nobody does OEM wheels better. I don't care what anybody says. I don't think there's even anybody close. And then you get soft rubber tires. Here is the back of the car with the transparent lens tail lights. And the Honda badges spelling out the name. The bumper with the curvature of the back of the car. And then with it being a convertible, which I'm not a fan of in 1:64 scale, but if you are going to have a convertible, at least make it right. And they did make this windshield look good. It's got the chrome trim. It's got the wipers. I love the slope of the hood with the round headlights. It's a very European style that we saw that a lot with Porsche, where the hood would slope down but the fenders would just go straight, and then out at the end of the fenders would come two round headlights. That is very Porsche-esque. Although with the Porsche, the hood would slope down further and you'd get much less of a grille. Okay, so some of the details on the top of the car. You have hinges for the trunk that are detailed and painted, as well as a gas cap. That gas cap looks so good. And then your interior is very highly detailed, which is important to me on a convertible, because the interior is usually the part of the convertible that takes away from all of its detail. And then up at the front of the car, you have your fender-mounted side view mirrors, as well as on the fender, I don't know what that says. because I can't read it and the camera is shaking too much. Maybe I'll be able to read it when watching back. And then below, whatever the font is, looks to be a little Honda, a little H. Then you've got your door handles, but even like the joints on the rocker panel, just so much attention to detail. Kyosho just kills it. So many brands kill it. I mean, it's really hard to put one brand above the others. For me, Tomica Limited Vintage is the best overall when you combine all the factors. But there are a lot of things that Kyosho does better than TLV, like the wheels, for example. Kyosho is also really good about capturing the ambiance of the car um, based on its origin. You know, TLV doesn't deal with that a lot because 99% of what they've done is Japanese. They've done a few European castings and that's it. They're just dipping their toe in the water of the Italian stuff. Actually, I take that back. So they've done some European stuff. They've done some German stuff. They have done a little bit of Italian stuff. They did the Alfa Romeo, and they did the Lancia Delta, and then they did the Volkswagen Golf. They did the 911. They did the Mercedes, the BMWs. So they've done some European stuff, but the Ferraris are going to be big. They're going to be big. They're going to be hard to get. They're going to be expensive as hell. They're going to be worth having. Anyways, I love this little Roadster. It's probably one of my favorite cars for diorama display. And I would love to get one of these customized by Joe Cano or Cano, where he does the rust effect, or even 100 little cars. So anyways, that leaves us one more, which is a domestic model, both from the automotive standpoint and the diecast standpoint. This is a Mercury made by Greenlight. Probably the most valuable. Actually, I don't think there's any probably about it. I can say with 100% certainty that this is the most valuable car in my Greenlight collection. They sell for high dollar. Because of the Mercury badging. Greenlight will continue to put this casting out, but very rare do they put it out with the civilian deco, and they no longer have the Mercury license, so any release from here going forward is going to be the Ford Crown Victoria, not the Mercury Marauder. But if you go to eBay and just check what these sell for, you will see that collectors don't really want the Crown Vic. They want the Mercury, and they're willing to pay a lot of money for them. This car loose in this condition is probably in the $50 range. Maybe more. If it went to auction, you get a couple people trying to get it, and depending on, the availability, like, if there aren't any others listed on eBay, or if there's one that's buy it now for $100, who knows what could happen with the auction. I can't tell you how many auctions I see on eBay that finish higher than the buy it now prices. It happens all the time. Like, you'll see a car buy it now $49.99, and you'll see an auction end the same day for $65. And you're just like, why? That's my rule of thumb. Anytime I'm bidding on something in an auction on eBay, is once it gets to the buy it now price, I'm out. Because why would you bid more? You just go buy it now. But people do it. It's very common. Anyways, so that's tonight's assortment. Hopefully that was eclectic enough for you. Lots of different diecast brands, lots of different car brands. And that's just the way I like to do it. Mix it up. Keep it fresh. Sometimes I do like to do the theme videos like all red cars or all Italian cars, all German cars, all European, all Japanese, whatever, all Kyosho, all TLV. But sometimes I like to just put a pile of cars together of different brands to see how they all look together. And the fact that you can put cars like Earl, American Muscle, and Greenlight and set them down. Let's do this. Let's trade this out real quick with the Merc. Well, the fact that you can put these $6 North American market cars on display next to these $25 Japanese market cars, to me, is pretty cool. So there you go. I'm not sure what the next video will hold, but I'm sure it'll be something. I know on Tuesday night I will be heading way across town to our friend's house to get some awesome import diecast cars. I'm not going to be getting much, but certainly I'll be getting enough to do a video. So look for that video on, it'll either be Tuesday night or Wednesday night, depending on how late Tuesday night goes. But for now, I'm going to wrap this video up, and I think I'm going to start my next tarp. I haven't gotten the right paper, so I'm going to try this construction paper again one more time. But I'm going to go with a little bit different idea. And see, I curled that up on the bottom too early. So the fact that that doesn't sit on the ground is not good. It's a bummer. I'm telling you, man, these tarps are way harder to make than what you would think. The guys that make these things, I have a new respect for. I do like how the back of this turned out, though, where it looks like the sun has just rotted away at it, and to the point where it's torn some holes. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. You all have a good Monday. You all have a good week at work. And I will holler at the next diecast video.